Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the main event. Introducing Carissa Green Industries. Let's get ready to launch!
Today, I talk with Scott Fletcher, a super experienced solutions architect. Other than a short hiatus where he held the lead application security specialist role at Australia Post, he's been with his current company, RedShield/Aura, since 2011. We covered a lot of ground, particularly on typical workflow for the modern enterprise. We discussed how executives can ensure they maintain oversight throughout the project lifecycle and how to ensure that the right security elements are baked in with minimal friction. Thank you so much, Scott, for joining us. How are you doing today?
Yeah, really good, thanks.
Can you tell us more about your security journey up until now and what you do?
Yeah, thanks, Carissa. So I was always been interested in IT. I always kind of had a natural knack for computers, and I ended up just out of sheer luck living with someone that actually ran their own software company. So at about 16, I kind of found a passion for writing computer software. I started out in VB6, which is, well and truly out of date now, but kind of progressed since there. So yeah, I've been in software since I was 16, which is now 15 years ago. And it kind of progressed from there. I worked in various leading tech companies, both in Palmerston North, which is you're going to have to get out your maps and realize that it's about an hour and a half north of Wellington. It's a pretty small town. I ended up moving to Wellington, working for a couple of government agencies, and then even a company called Commercial Fisheries Services, or FishServe. They were kind of like a leading tech company providing computer software to the fishing industry, both domestically within New Zealand and also globally. So that was kind of my software developer journey. In my early 20s, a company called Aura, which is now New Zealand's largest IT security company, kind of headhunted me. We worked on a project together, and at the end of the project, they stole me from FishServe. And I've been working for them pretty much ever since. I did take a minor break after moving to Australia. So I basically was principal consultant for them in New Zealand and also in Melbourne. I took a couple of years off to go and work as a contractor at Ozpost. Ozpost had an acquisition called SecurePay, which is a payment gateway providing online card not present payment processing for about 250,000 merchants in Australia, small and medium businesses, even some larger enterprises in Australia. So yeah, look, they had a need for an application security engineer. So I thought it'd be nice to go from the offensive side to the defensive side. I'd always been on the, break the app and then kind of tell how busted it is and walk away without actually really appreciating what it was like living those issues day in, day out and actually helping people resolve their problems. And now, after leaving Ozpost about a year and a half ago, I'm now working for RedShield, so as a solutions architect and security researcher.
Okay, cool. That's definitely an extensive journey, especially starting at 16. So you've obviously got a lot of knowledge. And I know that you have visibility across a lot of organizations. What trends do you see that people are starting to do right, and where can they improve?
Yeah, look, I guess the first bit, it always starts with the people. If people don't see the need for security, you're going to have a really hard time trying to adopt that or kind of promote that within your business. So security awareness training, and I'm talking about end user security awareness training, we're talking about, how not to end up being phished, how not to have malware on your computer. It actually starts the process of people thinking about how to do things in a secure way and actually questioning things. As humans, we're quite innately trusting, we think, oh, I'm going to win $1 million by clicking on this link. Oh, someone's going to give me $1 million. Well, reality tells us now after, multitude of, Nigerian email scams, that's not the case. So kind of people to question their thinking is certainly a good start. But what actually that results in is a general population uplift as far as security awareness goes. You see that people are now starting to be security focused, and they've then taken that to their business. it's gone from, oh, well, it's never happened to me, so it's not an issue, to, oh, I know someone that's been phished or hacked or had their identity stolen or had some fraudulent transactions on their credit card, going, oh, well, it actually is a real problem. And then, therefore, that is going to then be a problem for my business or the business that I work for. And so how can we actually improve so that we don't become a victim? I guess beyond that, things are now actually, there's a strong focus on security validation. So we see, businesses are having things pen tested. Projects include a pen test at the end of the project, just before it's going to go live. So there, at some point, someone has thought security is, at some point, an important piece of the puzzle. And so therefore, it's kind of included at some point in the process.
And what are your thoughts on a secure by design, or, obviously there's different variations to it, and embedding, security at every stage gate? Because, I've worked in a large bank before, and that was something we were trying to implement. But again, working on the business side of it and the development side, people felt a little bit like they were being policed a lot by security. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's true. A lot of people, if you're not interested in it, you're not going to be engaged. And I guess that's true for anything, right? So,
of course.
I have no interest in doing my taxes, so I pay someone to do it. Do you know what I mean? Unfortunately, with security, you can't just simply pay a security team to make all the security problems go away, because the people is an important part of the ecosystem. I guess that is one area where people can certainly improve, is actually embracing the full ecosystem and the full security ecosystem. So secure by design is certainly one piece of that. You've got all of the other bits that go with that as well. But I guess the way I use the analogy is like security is like a car. You can't simply say, oh, cool, I'm going to buy a car and I'm going to keep it on day one. And then, in 5 years' time, without any servicing, without any maintenance, no new tires, taking it to the mechanic, that things are still going to be running smoothly. Well, they're not. And the security ecosystem is the same, right? You can't just do something once. There are things you have to do on a regular basis. You have to repeat. You have staff come and go. You bring in new vendors. Systems change. New code gets released. New CVEs get found every day. So you can't simply say, oh, doing it once is enough. So embracing the full ecosystem and understanding that you actually do have to spend ongoing amounts of money to actually ensure the security of basically your business or your organization is a key crucial factor. I would also say maybe having the execs aware of the security implications and the costs, right? Mm-hmm. Because the thing is that they go, oh, well, security to, have it pen tested, to have a consultant at the get-go, to do the secure by design, to do your developer training, to do your third-party vendor assessments, to implement a cloud application firewall or some network firewalls, some managed security services cost money. So they go, oh, well, we can skimp on these things because, we don't really see it being a risk, or, the risk assessment that's been done doesn't really match, for the return on investment for the cost. But what businesses should be really concerned about is that, the global tolerance for breaches is at an all-time low. And, now we have things like GDPR and mandatory data breach reporting. Boards and execs really need to be asking those hard questions. It's not simply just saying, oh, it's not happened to us, or, we've had this security vendor or the software developer for 10 years, nothing's happened yet, so everything should be all good. You really should trust no supplier until they've basically proven that their systems have been tested and that they passed. I guess that kind of also feeds into selecting the right partner for the project. You generally find that companies that charge more have, invested in the people and the processes. They've got those, they've got all the bits that they need so to actually deliver a secure project. But that obviously comes at a cost. That stuff that they've developed, intellectual property, technologies that they've paid for, services that they consume, which obviously all cost. And so therefore those costs then passed on to you as the consumer. So once again, the right partner for the right project is a key bit there as well.
No, you're absolutely right. And I think, a few things that you've touched on, what the common, denominator that I'm seeing is more of a behavioral way of thinking. And I think, what are you seeing from an adoption point of view in the market that's helping? Yeah,
so certainly the adoption of managed services is a key bit. the understanding here that, if I'm a business, maybe I'm a dentist, right? I'm a dentist. I'm good at fixing teeth. I'm good at, veneers and teeth whitening. That's great. But I'm not a security business. So I know that I should probably or I'm not a software business. I should probably not write my own software to manage my patient records. I'm going to go to the market and I'm going to go and purchase something from someone else. It's the understanding that it is better for me and my business that if I should go to experts, just like I wouldn't probably try and fix my own teeth. Which is probably the first bit. So the adoption of cloud and the adoption of managed security services is one. Things like platform as a service. So, back in the day, people used to run their own mail servers. Some people still do, and I do question as to why. Run their own database servers, and you go, this is, patching, upgrades, how do you deal with downtime and cutover and all of those bits, as well as managing the security aspects. If there was a new patch coming out tomorrow for, SQL Server and it's critical, you've got to apply it. Well, is your business okay with having downtime? Platform as a service. So, Amazon RDS is a prime example where you've said, hey, I'm going to give this service, I'm going to consume it from Amazon. They're going to do the patching, they're going to do the upgrades, they're going to do it with no downtime, and life's good. So pushing the responsibility of the security components to a third party, especially a trusted third party, is one. Other things as well, the adoption of AI and machine learning. So I should qualify that with, there are some things I think AI is really good for, and some things that and we certainly see it in our industry as well around WAF and automated blocking and detection of attacks. I think machine learning is something that we'll get to, but we're not quite there today. But certainly around antivirus, threat intel feeds, things that can be really well classified, machine learning is great for, especially cloud machine learning. So, if you go to if you look at Cylance, for example, as an endpoint protection solution, well, actually it's using those signatures and stowing all the machine learning and all the number crunching in the cloud. And you're getting the advantage of the fact that Cylance provides endpoint protection for a range of businesses across a range of geographic locations. So those types of things are certainly helping.
So you talk about AI and machine learning. Now, I know that, there's obviously people talking about like false positives built around these types of things. What's your perspective on that? Like, obviously that'll become mature as things progress, but at the moment people are saying that, we're implementing all these things, but there's a lot of false positives. What type of advice would you have around that at the current stage and then looking into the future?
Well, look, I guess from false positive perspective, a false positive, you're essentially blocking legitimate use, right? Which arguably, it's business disruption. It's not great, but I would be more worried about the false negatives. So the things that aren't being picked up, or the things that machine learning actually isn't good for at all. So I'll give you a really good example. I work for a cloud WAF company, and we quite often get asked, well, we've got this other vendor out in the market and we've evaluated them, and they say that this machine learning, you're getting zero false positives and zero false negatives. We're going to block all the attacks. The answer is, regardless whether it's machine learning or a non-machine learning algorithm at the end, the answer is a yes or a no. Am I going to allow this, or am I going to block this? It doesn't matter how fancy the algorithm is and whether AI is involved in there or not. It's simply going to say yes or no. A lot of the things we see with issues that people come to us for are things where the answer isn't a yes or a no. So, for example, and I might get a little bit techie here, so please excuse me.
No, please go on.
For example, you've got a session token with not enough entropy. So that is, it's predictable, the result being that someone could potentially identify other users' sessions, gain access to their data, potentially gain access as an administrator to a system. Well, in the AI machine learning world, it probably wouldn't detect it. But if it could, the answer would be, do I allow this session token, or do I block this session token? Well, if you block the session token, the app isn't going to work for anybody. And it's basically going to say you're never logged in. So the answer in that situation is actually a transformational piece where you actually have to transform the request so that to the end user, it's not exploitable, that it has enough entropy, but to the application, that it is no longer vulnerable. To the application, that it is the original session token that it understands. So I guess that's probably how I would argue that the false negatives are the ones where the AI machine learning can't identify or can't fix, are the ones that you really should be worried about. Those are typically authentication, authorization, business logic related bugs. And that's where I kind of said before, where AI and machine learning will get there eventually.
Yes.
Means that we can go and do more exciting things than fixing application vulnerabilities in WAF technologies. But at the moment, that's kind of where we're at.
And just lastly, on the false negative side of thing, is it a fair assumption to say that executives should be focusing more on that side of things? So if they are talking to vendors and stuff like that, doing a bit of a vendor analysis, they should be focusing on that and not as much on the false positive sides of things based on what you've just said. Is that correct?
Yeah, typically what we see is people going, oh, well, they're focusing in the wrong area. So we see people saying, bots are the biggest problem. There are lots of big vendors out there, and I won't name them, but that say, bots are your biggest problem. If you stop the bots, or as we like to call them, ghosts, then your problems go away. So, but realistically, there's a paradigm shift here. We would say that you're better to find and fix all your issues. So it doesn't actually matter if a bot's having a go at your application. There's ways and means of defending yourself against those problems, versus in the other case where it says, well, actually, you don't really need to find and fix all your issues. We're just going to stop the bad actors from exploiting those issues. So it's a paradigm shift, but I would certainly say that if you're an executive, finding and fixing the issues that are there, which is, no different than you would do for any bug in your application. If you find a bug in your application, you fix it, and you fix it in a timely manner. We would say that is the better approach.
Got you. No, okay, that makes perfect sense, because I think definitely not everyone, a lot of people do focus on the false positive, but I'm glad that you gave a lot more clarity and more of an in-depth response on that, so I appreciate that. But obviously, as a solution architect, you see various approaches throughout projects and implementations. Where do people fall down?
Yeah, so look, I'll give you a little bit of an example. So when I left the consulting business, Aura, and was hired at Ozpost, like I say, there was a lot of work that needed to be done. Unfortunately, right, so the key bit here is we walked into a situation on day one where we knew there were lots of issues. We didn't know where the issues were. It's like, well, how do you go from your current state to, your ideal target state? When there are so many unknowns. And I guess this is the same for pretty much any project. I would say that over-planning is probably the biggest issue, which kind of goes again. Can you define
over-planning? What does over-planning look like?
Yeah, well, if you look at security, right, security isn't it just a project, and it's not just a product. So, I mean, what I mean by that is, turning around and saying, oh, we have $1 million for this, or turning around and saying it has to be done by this date. And this is the exact scope of the thing we're going to deliver. What I'm saying is you still need to consider these things, but planning it down to the nth point to say, okay, here's exactly what's going to happen at every point. When you actually don't know what's going to happen in a month's time, you might find something else. It was kind of like a ball of string. You kind of pull it a little bit, and a little bit more comes, and a little bit more and more and more and more, and then you go, well, we went from having, we looked at the ball of string on the table, and it looked like it was maybe 5 meters long. But when we actually pulled it out, it was 150 meters long. You know what I mean? So trying to plan it all at the beginning before you start is setting yourself up for failure. I would certainly also say that it's a horses for courses thing, right? So you typically find choosing a vendor solely on price or choosing one vendor for all things is going to set yourself up for failure as well. There are large companies out there that sell, endpoint protection, WAFs, network firewalls, and they say, oh, we've got all this suite of 200 products, If we've been and spoken to some customers that have brought these, full application network hardware suites from these large corporates, which are multinational, they're big, they've got big names behind them. And you actually ask them, say, okay, can you tell us what they do? And they go, we're not really sure. You say, well, when was the last time that you looked at these? Oh, not really sure either. Where are the logs going? How do they work?
Sorry, can I just interrupt there? When you say they're not really sure, what does that exactly mean? That no one's really auditing or governing this? Is that correct?
More to the sense that they've gone along and they've said, okay, we're going to buy from this really big company that has this large suite of products and we're just going to implement it all and we should be done. without actually understanding what it is that they do.
Right, got you.
Efficacy is also another issue, right? So, we would typically say that if you're going to, if you want, a firewall product, go and look at the market, evaluate what it is that you need it to do, both today and also in for a future state, and buy that. Then look at endpoint. Don't simply say, oh, there's a company out there that does both, so we'll just buy both of those solutions from one company.
So more of a due diligence type of thing.
Correct. Well, you look at a lot of new, especially in the security space, a lot of the security startups, they pick one thing and do it really, really well, rather than saying, oh, we're just a big company that has all of these different things and you can buy it all from one place. So certainly picking the best vendor, and you could use Gartner as a guiding stick. I wouldn't say that, for example, the company I work for actually isn't listed in Gartner, but all the technologies in which that we use actually do. So don't simply rely on things like Gartner, although it is a good starting point. But certainly going out to the market and actually evaluating, trialing these things as well in real life is, and how they work for your business or your organization is something that I would certainly recommend. Beyond that, though, I guess more than if you're essentially looking at the third-party external view, looking internally as well. So when we walked into SecurePay, we were all contractors, and there were a lot of staff there at the time that had been there for a long time. And change is something, and managing change is an area which a lot of businesses don't do well. But in the security space, it's something that you have to essentially adopt and embrace right from the get-go. The way that you're doing something today might not be the way that you're going to do it next week. And in reality, you probably should always be striving for a better way of doing things, a more automated, repeatable way of doing things that doesn't rely on a human being there all the time. But unfortunately, that does kind of incite a little bit of concern with a lot of people that work in an organization, because it's like, oh my God, I've got to learn something new. I've been doing it this way for 20 years. It's been okay for today, or up until now, but this is concerning. It's a new way of working. A prime example is taking a business from a waterfall approach to an agile approach to a DevOps to a DevSecOps approach, where you've now got automated CI/CD pipelines. Well, that's where you really need to be to actually address the problem. If you have a vulnerability in your software code that you need to actually remediate it in a really short space of time, the waterfall approach and even the agile approach in most situations isn't going to work. But trying to get your entire development team from A to B actually takes a lot of organizational change. So finding really good leaders to encourage, and a really good example I'm going to give Tom Walker, who I worked with, is actually head of platforms at SecurePay. Is one of the contractors I worked with, was really good at this. And I absolutely stands out as a prime example of how leading with enthusiasm and encouragement, and also with really good technical skills to actually, show, hey guys, this is actually how easy it is to do now, rather than saying you've got to do it because we must, So
yes, got you.
Having the right leadership is key as well.
I think that's still an immature area at the moment because of having both a foot in each of those camps. But what I'd like to ask you lastly, if you were to give a piece of advice looking to roll out a new project, what do you see as the most valuable bang for buck steps that people can take?
Oh, it's a tricky one. So I guess the first bit is do your research. So we talked about the project piece before. I would certainly say, and I've just given a prime example of having good leadership, but not just good leadership, finding the right people with the right skills and experience. That's everything from, project managers through developers, testers, infrastructure people, even third parties. I'd also say here, being fairly young at 31 myself and have started this journey quite early on, is younger can certainly be an advantage here. I wouldn't simply say I'm going to go with a company that's been around for 40 years. You actually, if you go with a younger demographic, you can find that they've got relevant skills for today. They're up to date with the latest tech frameworks, development methodologies. They're also really eager to learn new things, and they'll actually put in a lot of effort over and above someone that's potentially been there for 30 years, that's done it a particular way the whole time and is probably a little bit more stuck in the way that they operate. I know that I'm being very generalist here, but I would certainly say, I know. So that's one of the things I'd say. Also, where internal staff aren't available, lean on third parties, but also test their skills as well. If you're going to go into a development company and, say, oh, look, we want you to build us a piece of software or a system, actually get the developers in or get a third party in to test their developers or their knowledge on things like OWASP, their secure development methodologies, how they would build things, some example code or, even if it was like a letter of attestation from a third-party pen testing company for another solution they built that says, hey, we tested this company's software and we found no issues. Or we found some and they fixed them straight away and there are no remaining issues. Those are the types of things I would say up front is something that you can help with that can certainly, take a lot of the guesswork out later on. Probably the other couple of things that we see, I speak to customers day in, day out where they've got applications, software, systems that are vulnerable. They've had pen tests. They've been built either recently or they're old. And I typically ask them, say, well, why haven't you got them fixed? And I hear a range of answers, but the thing that really stands out for me is that they never really articulated their security requirements in any contracts. So who's responsible? How secure must it be? To what standard does it need to be built? There are really good reference material out there for us. So like OWASP has the ASVS, which is the Application Security Verification Standard, which pretty much lists out what an application must do to be secure, how it should be tested, things like that must be tested, must pass a security review following OWASP testing guidelines, when it must be done, how often it must be done, who's responsible for fixing it, how quickly they must be fixing it. All of those things really should reside in contracts, but I just don't see it happening. I'd also say planning up for future requirements, everything from, how you're going to be patching your infrastructure to patching your code to patching code libraries, might need some virtual patching requirements, things like, how are you going to respond to incidents, disaster recovery, business continuity planning. The key bit here is if you are waiting to the last minute or you're having to respond to something without having planned for in advance, it's going to cost you a fortune. Prime example, if you're ringing up a Big Four accounting company and saying, hey, we need a post-incident analysis or some digital forensics on a system because we've been compromised, and we're not even sure if the breach is still occurring, those costs are going to be astronomical. So I would certainly say planning for those things that you really should be doing to ensure that your business is secure before it happens is probably the last bit as far as new projects go.
No, I think that's perfect. But one last thing I'd like to get your advice on is you spoke earlier about younger companies. How do you think younger companies can provide assurance to potentially their clients? So you obviously said companies been out there for 30 years. Do people feel more comfortable, more safe? Admittedly, I understood what you were saying around the companies have, the younger companies have this velocity and this agility to solve those problems. But what can younger companies sort of pitch or present or provide assurance for people to trust them and kind of forget about how many years they've been around, but they've got the capability to be able to deliver against the company's requirements?
Yeah, so in the same way that in the security business, you gain credibility from speaking at conferences, research, being involved in the community is certainly something that younger organizations and younger businesses are really keen on. The social aspect of, being in the industry is quite important. I'd certainly say that's probably one of the key things that they should leverage. There's a lot of time you go out and it's the way that, we sell here in Australia as well, is it's go out and actually get to know the person, get to know what it is they do and actually understand them before actually deciding to do business with them. So that's probably one of the key bits. The research part is really important as well. A lot of younger companies too, or developers in younger companies, we have them here at RedShield. They'll actually contribute to GitHub and open source projects as well. So if you're a company looking to purchase software services, you can actually you can go and have a look at the code that they produce for some of these, common open source things like Apache, Nginx, and all of those as well, where traditionally companies that have been around for a longer period of time typically say, oh, well, that intellectual property is ours. We don't give our developers time to go and work on open source projects and those types of things as well. They're gaining a lot of experience because you're looking at code from a range of developers with a range of skills in a range of areas. So there's lots of things. I wouldn't dismiss a company that's been around for 40 years and say, oh, you're a bit archaic. I would turn around and say, well, look, once again, it's who can best do the job for me. And I wouldn't even specifically base it on price. I would say, here's what I'm trying to achieve. Okay. And I would sit them both down in a room and say, well, okay, you take me through what it is that you think we need to be doing to make this a success, both from a functional perspective and also from a security perspective. And if you're a business, I'll give you this advice as well. If you're a business out there that potentially is going, well, I don't know anything about security, but I know I need this new system. You talked about it earlier, the secure by design piece, where you might actually say, well, we want a virtual security officer to come in from a reputable security company, actually validate what they're saying and give some recommendations. That's also a really valuable thing that you can do to essentially qualify which company you eventually purchase services from.
Awesome. I'm super impressed by what you've said. I think you've given the listeners a very deep level of understanding, especially from your level of experience as well. So I really, really appreciate the time you've taken today, Scott. But lastly, how can people reach out to you if they're interested in having a chat with you?
Yeah, so I guess the easiest way is via our website. So our website is RedShield, all is one word, .co. So that's .co.com. If you go to redshield.com, it's going to say Home Security Systems. Unfortunately, that isn't us. Right. So yes, we're a cloud firewall company. But yeah, so if you go to our website, there's phone numbers. There's also a contact us form, which I get those emails as well. Emails basically go to about 6 solution architects here at RedShield. Otherwise, you can give me a call. I'm sure Carissa could put my number in the meeting notes.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Scott. We really, really appreciate it, and I hope we can chat again soon.
Perfect. Thanks, Carissa.
Thanks again for joining us. I hope you got some insights from this episode of KB Cast with me, KB. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, or Google Play to get every new episode as it's released. And as always, show notes are available from kbcast.com for every single episode. We're building a community, so always love to get feedback, ideas, or questions on hello@kbcast.com.